Hi, I'm Jedi Master Josh. Thanks for joining me today. Today I want to talk about the increasing divide between Americans, the increasing political division between Americans, between conservatives and liberals, specifically. And I want to highlight that with the current immigration fiasco pertaining to the zero tolerance policy. I did a video on it yesterday. I went through a lot of the facts, so I'm not going to redo that video. But what I am going to do is I'm going to go through some examples of the insane levels of hyperbolic rhetoric that are exasperating these political tensions in the United States right now, which are increasing and are becoming quite disturbing, frankly. We've seen it get to a point where someone who is motivated politically, somebody who follows liberal politics, really does think that they are fighting basically Nazis. Now, you saw this manifest just last year, about a year ago, from this day, when Steve Scalise and Republican members of Congress went to a baseball practice for a congressional baseball game. While they were there, a lunatic decided to show up and attempt to murder everybody that was there. Luckily, he failed. He wasn't able to kill anyone. Representative Steve Scalise did get shot, and he had to undergo a long, painstaking recovery process, and he's okay now. Just recently, he returned to the baseball field after a year, and was participating in the game. So that was good to see. But that was a flashpoint of the hyper partisan environment that we live in. And listen, it is on both sides of the aisle. I'm only going to be using examples of liberal hyperbole for this video because it pertains to the illegal immigration situation. Now, before I do that, just to prove the point, I'm not trying to do this to attack liberals in large. I'm doing this to sort of try to bring attention to a broader subject, which is the hyper-politicized nature, the political divide in America. So, for instance, when it comes to people on the Republican side of the aisle, you had Corey Lewandowski come out the other day and disgustingly dismiss the idea that a parent was getting separated from her child with Down syndrome, and he basically pretended like it was not a big deal. He made a mockery of it. It was truly a vile thing to do. Okay, so I'm not trying to come out here and anybody who tries to defend what Corey Lewandowski did is basically a scumbag in my point of view. But with this situation, I'm really concerned because Americans are always going to have a division in politics, but for it to get to the point where we can't communicate with each other, where the only thing that's happening is both sides of the aisle are just simply attacking each other to try to score points. That can get to a point where it can become violent, and it has. And I really hope that we can avoid this in the future. But unfortunately, especially with the current immigration situation, it seems like we may actually be heading right for that type of situation again. So a article from the Scientific American pointed out that U.S. liberals and conservatives not only disagree on policy issues, they are also increasingly unwilling to live near each other, be friends, or get married to members of the other group. So this is obviously troubling. Again, this shows that the political divide is so great. The level of animus towards people with opposing points of view is so great that we are actually taking action in our lives to separate ourselves from these people. We are basically you could say, I think, in an ideological civil war at this point in this country. Now, I'm going to go through a list of examples just from the last few days of how insane the hyperbolic rhetoric has gotten surrounding the zero tolerance policy that the Trump administration enacted, where they, if you don't know, if you've been living under a rock for the last few days and haven't heard about the zero tolerance policy, then allow me to enlighten you. It basically means that we are following the law and that we are going to prosecute everybody who crosses the border illegally. Now, due to some very, very disingenuous and dishonest and hypocritical reporting from the media, many people that you would say are left of center, many people that would consider themselves liberal, are looking at the situation and they think what is happening is a cruel policy enacted by the Trump administration strictly to harm children as a way of basically pandering to Trump's base. Now, again, I went through all the facts on, not all the facts, I went through many of the facts surrounding this situation, and I hope that with that information people were able to make a decision for themselves, because I don't think the mainstream media in any sort of a real way has actually made an honest attempt at giving people the full the full amount of information that they would need to be able to make a determination on themselves. They're simply trying to use politics to try to sway people's decision, to try to propagandize people. And I really do think that the majority of the people who are voicing concerns are doing so out of a real concern for children. Okay, so I'm not trying to attack anybody on that level. I just want to make that clear. And that brings me now to real clear politics. So just today, you had a congressional intern yell "F you" at President Trump in the U.S. Capitol. So this is from, according to Frank Thorpe of NBC. He tweeted, as President Trump's entourage entered Speaker Ryan's office in the Capitol, someone on the other side of the Capitol rotunda yelled, "Mr. President, F you." He entered about 15 seconds later. He also went on to say, per our intern who was standing there, the woman who yelled, "Mr. President, F you," was in fact a congressional intern. Now, I'm going to go through and I'm going to show examples of people in the government, people in the media, with extreme hyperbolic rhetoric, and I'm also going to go through examples of citizens that are reacting to this, and that are reacting to this information and to the general hyperbolic, scene that is painted, the picture that is painted by the Democrats and people in the media, and how it's causing people to, in real life, act upon this hyperbolic rhetoric that they're being fed day in and day out. Chad Pergram of Fox also had some input about the congressional aide, saying, "Congressional aide or intern yells, 'Mr. President, F you,' from across the Capitol rotunda as he walks to the Speaker's office before meeting with House GOP peers on immigration. Gets attention of the U.S. CP, Secret Service." As it should. This is not normal. This is not okay. This isn't the type of this isn't the type of way that you conduct yourself when you're in that type of a setting, when you are in that sort of a position, because it can have very serious consequences. The TC Palm reports that a Stewart man was charged with threatening Representative Brian Mast's children over Trump policy. A Stewart man was arrested Tuesday after a federal complaint states he threatened U.S. Representative Brian Mast's children over the Trump administration's child separation immigration policy. Lawrence Key called Mast's Washington office Monday and said, quote, "I'm going to find the congressman's kids and kill them." An intern who took the call told the FBI, according to the federal complaint filed in the U.S. District Court, quote, "If you're going to separate kids at the border, I'm going to kill his kids." Key is charged with communication of a threat to kidnap or injure a person in regard to Mast's children, a girl, and 2 boys younger than 8. So obviously there is an example of somebody acting on this type of hyperbolic rhetoric. I'm obviously not saying that this is a direct response to that congressional staffer. Obviously not. What I'm saying is this helps to build that atmosphere that enables people like that, crazy people, to act on it, just like the baseball shooter. Remember, the baseball shooter was a big follower of MSNBC. He was a big follower of Bernie Sanders. And I'm not saying these people are explicitly to blame, but I am saying that they helped to create an atmosphere that enabled that individual, that encouraged that individual, that helped to bring that individual to that point where they committed such an evil, atrocious act because they thought that they were really doing the right thing. Because if the Trump administration really is a bunch of Nazis, then you have a moral duty, a moral imperative to actually try to act on that to stop the Nazis. The Daily Caller reports, socialist activist who harassed Homeland Security Secretary works for the Department of Justice. So this is just wonderful. Homeland Secretary Kristen Nielsen was eating out at a Mexican restaurant on Tuesday, and of course, I mean, obviously the worst thing about this is the fact that she's eating at a Mexican restaurant. How dare she, as she is forcibly separating immigrant children from their families and putting them into Nazi-style concentration camps. At least that's what I heard from CNN. So it must be true. She goes to a Mexican restaurant on Tuesday and is harassed by a group of individuals, one of which is a member of the Washington, D.C. chapter of the Democratic Socialist of America. Well, a bunch of individuals from the Washington, D.C. chapter of the Democratic Socialist of America crashed Nielsen's meal with a demonstration full of chants and other outbursts. One of those participants, Allison Hrabar, actually works for the Trump administration as a paralegal in the DOJ. Saying, quote, "Christian Nielsen, you're a villain locking up immigrant children," activists can be heard saying in a video. An employee with the Trump administration initially tipped the DCNF off of Hrabar's presence at the protest. The Washington Examiner spoke with Hrabar Wednesday, and she defended her behavior as off-government time and a use of her First Amendment rights, saying, quote, "If you see these people in public, you should remind them that they shouldn't have peace," she told the Examiner. "We aren't the only ones who can do this. Anyone who sees Christian Nielsen at dinner, anyone who sees anyone who works at DHS and ICE at dinner can confront them like this. And that's what we hope this will inspire people to do." And another example of over-the-top, hyperbolic rhetoric. MSNBC's Rachel Maddow actually cried. I'm going to give her the benefit of the doubt and assume that this was real. She actually cried on air. Now, a lot of people are saying that she probably faked it. I'm not in her head. I don't know whether or not she faked it. What I can say is someone in her position would have access to the type of information at a level that the average everyday citizen wouldn't. So I have a hard time giving her the benefit of the doubt. I have a hard time accepting that she knows in detail everything that there is to know about this situation happening at the border right now. And I have a hard time believing that if she really had all the facts, that she would actually come to the conclusion that what's going on right now is so evil that a reaction like that is warranted. Now, The Washington Examiner points out that the mayor of Atlanta has signed an executive order blocking the jail, blocking the jails in her purview from housing ICE detainees, from not allowing the jails in her city to actually house people that ICE have detained, Immigration and Customs Enforcement. The city's refusal to house ICE detainees may, and this is her words, and this is incredible, may, quote, result in individuals being sent to private, substandard, for-profit facilities in the state, as these facilities do not offer publicly funded access to legal representation that may help detainees successfully challenge their immigration status. But the inhumane action of family separation demands that Atlanta act now. So what she's doing there is actually quite amazing. Whether she meant to or not, she's actually admitting right there that it's not about actually helping the illegal immigrants. It's about doing something that is going to be politically rewarding. It's about doing something that is going to put you in a positive light. It's about virtue signaling. And she admits it. She says right here, look, what I just did is probably going to make it to where these immigrants are actually not able to access legal representation in the way that they would if I had not signed this executive order. However, I'm going to do this anyways because it's going to make me look good. Basically is what that means. Now look, I don't know if she really thinks that this is the right thing to do. I just have a really hard time believing it. You really have to give her the benefit of the doubt. What this seems like, and what it almost certainly is this woman using her position to grandstand and to virtue signal and to try to score political points at the expense of immigrants. The Wrap reports, David Killian, a left-wing journalist and contributor for The Nation, found himself in Twitter jail for 12 hours after tweeting out Stephen Miller. Stephen Miller is the hardline immigration, an advisor for the president, and he's a hardline immigration hawk. He is someone who wants, obviously, every available option to be put on the table in order to secure our border. Well, this fellow, David Cleon, decided to tweet out Stephen Miller's personal cell phone number. The writer said he obtained the number from Splinter, which doxed the senior White House aide in this article. Which has a link to the article. Miller's cell number was disconnected as of 4 p.m. Eastern Time Wednesday when the Wrap tried to call, saying, quote, "This is war," said Cleon. "I think that what is happening right now at the border is child abuse. This is systematic child abuse. It is racist child abuse. It is being carried out for cynical political purposes." So, what you have here is the worst kind of political rhetoric. This isn't somebody who's trying to have an actual debate. This isn't someone who's trying to open up discussions with the other side. This is someone who has decided, for whatever reason, that the people on the other side are their enemies, that they are evil, that their actions are morally reprehensible, and that this is war, according to him. We need to take extreme measures to intervene and to attempt to change the status quo, to attempt to, using whatever means necessary. You're going to do whatever it takes to win a war to stop the racist child abuse. Okay? Now, people see this kind of stuff, and a lot of people, they think that it's true. They think that they really are on the right side of history. They think that by going along with that type of propaganda, that they are actually being the good guys, that they are doing the moral thing. And in a report from the Daily Wire, Antifa, good old Antifa, they crawled out. The anti-fascists, so-called, crawled out from under their rock. I guess they weren't busy trying to shut down free speech events, so they decided to come out and and docks a bunch of ICE agents. So the report goes on. The Twitter account Nebraska Antifa sent out a tweet to its followers on Tuesday that linked to the personal information of ICE officers compiled from information found on LinkedIn. The tweet said, quote, "Some enterprising hero archived the ICE employees listed on LinkedIn." A Twitter user who goes by Sam Levigny compiled the list of ICE agents' identities, titles, and locations. In a tweet on Tuesday morning, he says he, quote, "scraped LinkedIn for people that work for ICE." And I've heard word that this person that doxed these agents is actually a university professor himself. It wouldn't be the first time we've had university professors involved in reprehensible Antifa behavior, and I don't think it's going to be the last. That's something you can probably safely bet on. But just look at what he's saying there. He's putting out the information of ICE officials. Probably not so people can call them and say, hey, thanks for trying to secure the border. I don't think that's what they're going to be calling to say. I mean, obviously, this is intended to be some sort of threat. It is intended to put this information out there for nefarious purposes in one way or the other. And again, what you've got here is the people who are doxing these agents are trying to paint the picture that these Border Patrol agents, just like Nazi officers, are engaged in activity that deserves action on this level, deserves extreme action. And CBS Pittsburgh reports marshals are looking for a 26-year-old man named Sean Christie of McAdoo, Pennsylvania. Authorities say he should be considered armed and dangerous. Christie reportedly posted in a social media post threatening to, quote, put a bullet in the head of President Trump. The post has since been deleted. Christie also posted about Northampton County District Attorney John Morganelli. WNEP also reports that this isn't the first time Christie has been in trouble for making threats. He and his father were sentenced to probation in 2012 for making hundreds of threatening phone calls to former Alaskan Governor Sarah Palin and her attorney. So, I've gone through some examples of, and this is just the last couple days, okay? I've gone through some examples of the fact that due to this immigration policy, the zero tolerance policy that is simply following the law as it is on the books, the same laws that have been on the books for years, that by doing that, these people are coming out, whether they're people who are in the media, whether they're people who are part of the government in one way or the other. These people are all coming out and making it very clear that we can have zero tolerance for the zero tolerance policy. We cannot allow this to happen. What is happening is child abuse. These are people getting put in Nazi-style concentration camps. And I just can't stress enough. I know I'm probably seems like I'm repeating myself unduly. But I really just want to make sure people understand how dangerous this really is. And for that, I would like to go now to clearly the most reprehensible, in my point of view, example of this disgusting rhetoric that has been put forward in the last few days. So I want to now go to Peter Henry Fonda, who is I believe the brother of Jane Fonda. He himself is an actor. I couldn't tell you anything that he's been in, and especially after this series of events, I could honestly care less. So here's what Peter Henry Fonda had to say on Twitter. Christian Nielsen, the DHS secretary, is a lying gash that should be put in a cage and poked at by passerby. The gash should be pilloried in Lafayette Square, naked and whipped by passerby while being filmed for posterity. He goes on. SS, Sarah Sanders, is a lying gash too, and quote-unquote gash is much worse than the C word. Not cool. Maybe we should take her children away and deport her to Arkansas and give her children to Stephen Goebbels Miller for safekeeping, making a nice little reference to Joseph Goebbels, the propaganda minister of the Nazis in Nazi Germany. And he then goes on to top it off with this lovely little zinger. We should rip Barron Trump, Melania Trump's 12 or 11-year-old, I forget, 11 or 12-year-old son, Donald Trump's 11-year-old son. We should rip Barron Trump from his mother's arms and put him in a cage with pedophiles and see if mother will stand up against the giant a-hole she is married to. 90 million people in the streets on the same weekend in the country. And then he finishes it off with a lovely little expletive to show that he is not unhinged at all. I mean, the disgusting nature of this tweet just really cannot be overstated. We should rip Barron Trump from his mother's arms and put him in a cage with pedophiles. So this is disgusting, obviously, what this person said. And yeah, after a massive, backlash and outrage, even some in the mainstream media were forced to come out and say that they are against this type of rhetoric, at least to that extent, because they were literally forced to. He came out and apologized. Said that he didn't mean to do it. I'm sure he was just taking Ambien or something. But this is how a lot of people think. This isn't just it's highlighted because he's, a celebrity, quote unquote. He's somebody who is sort of a public figure in a way, somebody who's in the spotlight to a degree. So he is sort of a flashpoint. But understand, a lot of people feel this way. Maybe not quite to that level, but a lot of people think along these lines. And it's because they've been led to this point from a mainstream media that constantly says Donald Trump is a Nazi. He's building concentration camps. He wants the world to melt over from global warming. He wants to, he wants to do evil things to immigrant children. He wants to make sure that nobody can get affordable health care. It's never Trump is just doing something I disagree with. It's what Trump is doing is horrible, it's reprehensible, it's evil, and it's immoral. This is very different. This type of rhetoric is something that obviously should be quite frankly unacceptable, but not only is it accepted by many, it's actually embraced. And the proof of that, at least as far as I can gather to this point, Peter Fonda, after tweeting this and then deleting the tweets, and then finally having to apologize, his Twitter followers didn't decrease, they actually increased. So this guy gained thousands, by the way, of Twitter followers after saying these disgusting, horrible, reprehensible things. You've got a lot of people who, again, really do feel like they are fighting against an evil empire. They think that they are Captain America and they're fighting against the Red Skull, aka Donald Trump. Like any day now, he's just going to rip off his mask and he's just going to actually be Red Skull under there. And all the people in the media, the liberals, they will all say, "Well, look, see, I told you so." I mean, that's the level of insanity. I mean, this shows insanity. What that guy did, that is as unhinged as it gets. That's a lunatic speaking. And it's very dangerous. It's very dangerous. People in the real world, not on Twitter, can suffer real life consequences with something like that. When you look at what happened to Secretary Nielsen, how she got shouted out of that Mexican restaurant by, among others, a member of Trump's own administration, amazingly enough. That could have been worse. That could have been much worse. Imagine if all it takes is somebody who's unhinged, like Peter Fonda, to to act on something like that. I mean, if this continues along this line, this level of heated rhetoric, it will lead to violence. That's the only way it can lead. It will lead to violence. And I just really hope that people can understand that this situation is untenable, and that people really need to dial it back, and they really need to dial it back right now, because I don't think they know what they're getting themselves into. Again, I think it's safe to say that we are in an ideological civil war in this country. That's a cold civil war. That cold civil war could become hot, and it's stuff like this that has a snowball effect that can lead down that road, and is, in fact, leading down that road. So, and obviously, Sony Pictures obviously has a movie with Mr. Fonda coming out, and they haven't said anything about that. They haven't said if they're still going to release the movie. Twitter, who of course has, canceled people, deleted Roger Stone's whole account for doing things far left, for using curse words, basically. And Twitter, the CEO of Twitter, has been completely silent. This guy's account hasn't been shut down. Nothing. No action taken whatsoever. Guaranteed. Ask yourself, if a Republican, or if James Woods, for example, came out, a conservative actor, came out and said something like this about Michelle Obama's children, imagine the outrage. But there's nothing. There's nothing. You've got people apologizing for this, actually embracing this type of rhetoric. Again, very, very dangerous. Very, very dangerous. So, in the wake of all this, what has evil, horrible, racist, Nazi leader Donald Trump done? Well, in the absence of the Democrats being willing to actually work towards a legislative fix for the issue at the border, President Trump today signed an executive order. And what this executive order is aiming to do is it is going to, at least according to the order, it is going to hold illegal immigrant children with their parents in detention in some way, shape, or form while their parents' claims are pending, while their claim for asylum or their criminal processing is being worked out. What it's also going to do is it's also going to maintain the zero tolerance policy, the aspect of which deporting illegal immigrants will not change. So these people who come across the border illegally are going to still be held in detention, and they're still going to be deported unless they are able to actually get granted a claim for asylum. So the media, I thought, that's what they wanted. They didn't want children separated from their parents. That's what the whole issue was. The Democrats aren't willing to actually work with Congress to sign a bill to make it the law to where children can't be separated. So President Trump signs an executive order, makes that the case. Now, by the way, he's not allowed to do that. The executive order is invalid. It's immediately going to be challenged in court, and it is basically instructing government agencies to not follow the law that is on the books. In 2015, the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, as I said in my video yesterday, ruled that children cannot be held for more than 20 days with their parents. They cannot be held for more than 20 days with their parents. These people who are crossing the border are claiming asylum. Asylum claims always are going to take more than 20 days. They're going to take months. That means if we want these people to fully go through the process of claiming asylum or having their claiming asylum or the criminal process in some case proceedings, if we want them to actually go through that fulsomely, we have to separate the children. That's the only way it can happen. The only other option is to give that parent a court date send them into the interior of the United States with their child, quote unquote, because many times we don't actually know, and expect them to come back at that court date. That's ridiculous. That's not something that's actually going to happen, and it doesn't happen. And anyone who's honestly taken a look at this situation at the border, who's looked at the facts, should reasonably be able to come to that conclusion. So President Trump signs this executive order, and what do the mainstream media, what do the Democrats do? They come out and they are not happy about this. They're still not happy about this. It's still somehow Donald Trump's fault. You see, Donald Trump is still the bad guy here. It doesn't matter that he has done what we wanted him to do, that he is keeping families together, not separating them. That doesn't matter, you see. He's still the bad guy, and we got to make sure that you know that. So here from the Daily Caller is some quotes from some people in the mainstream media and the Democrats it's not only not good enough, it's basically meaningless. So, under the zero tolerance policy, so long as these parents are being prosecuted criminally, they will continue to be separated from their children and will be separated from their parents for at least a few days. Yes, well, they're going through the criminal process. And when they go through the criminal process, what happens is they're again detained for a few days, and then they're generally given time served, assuming it's their first time entering into the country illegally. Entering into the country illegally is a misdemeanor. You can face up to 6 months in prison, in jail for it. Entering into the country for a second time, however, is a felony and has much more severe consequences. But when it's the first time offense, these people typically get time served, and within a few days are able to either claim asylum, which most of them do, or they can quickly, with their child, be deported back to their country of origin, which almost never happens. It goes on here. MSNBC's Casey Hunt questioned what would, quote, happen next, noting, quote, this executive order does not end the zero tolerance policy. Everyone will continue to be prosecuted, which puts a serious strain on resources. So look at this. She's saying, why are we still holding people? Why are we still prosecuting people who are coming across the border illegally? Look at the strain on resources. Why doesn't the Customs and Border Patrol, why don't ICE have enough resources, I wonder? It couldn't be because of the Democrats, and it couldn't be because of the liberal media constantly pushing for open border policies and constantly saying that anybody on the other side of the aisle who wants to secure the border is an evil racist. No. That can't be anything to do with it. No. That, of course, is just absurd if you claim something like that. You yourself are clearly an evil racist. Democratic Wisconsin Senator Tammy Baldwin complained on CNN that, quote, it does not reverse zero tolerance policy, and so we're still going to have some really critical issues to deal with relating to families with young children. Democratic California Senator Dianne Feinstein agreed, stating that the executive order, quote, appears to be the next step in the Trump administration's larger agenda to eliminate basic protections for asylum seekers. You get that language there? Donald Trump makes it to where illegal immigrant family units can stay together while they are being processed, while they are claiming asylum. That is what the Democrats in the media were complaining about just yesterday. He fixes that, and they still complain. Why do they still complain? Because it's still a zero tolerance policy. You see, people coming across as family units are still being prosecuted at the border. So what that shows is what they want is they want the open border policies to stay the same, because they've made it clear that they're not going to work with Congress to actually have a legislative fix. So they want the open borders to continue to remain wide open. And on top of that, they don't want family units who cross the border to be prosecuted. In other words, they want them to just be released through the catch and release policy that the Obama administration championed, and that even President Trump, for a good part of his administration, his term so far, that even President Trump has been following. It was just recently that they enacted the zero tolerance policy, and that was not just out of the blue. It's not like Jeff Sessions woke up one day and said, hey, you know what sounds like a good idea? Punishing illegal immigrant children. No, we've had a massive surge in people crossing the border, particularly unaccompanied minors, children who were sent from their parents, who were taken, who their parents gave, in many cases, to human traffickers to take them illegally into the United States. So you want to talk about things that are harmful to children? I'd say a several thousand-mile journey with human smugglers who are just as likely to rape and or kill you as they are to actually get you to the United States in one piece. I'd say that is child abuse. But, call me crazy. And then, of course, the Hill points out that Chuck Schumer, the leader, the Democratic Senate Minority Leader, said just yesterday, made it very clear that he will not work with Donald Trump to actually fix the problem legislatively on the border. That he will not do it. So here's a quote from old Chucky. There are so many obstacles to legislation, and when the president can do it with his own pen, remember, when he says that, he means not enforcing the law. It makes no sense. Schumer told reporters, legislation is not the way to get here when it's so easy for the president to sign it. Asked if that meant Democrats would not support a bill backed by Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, Republican of Kentucky, to keep immigrant families, together while seeking asylum on the U.S. border, Schumer said they want to keep the focus on Trump. You see there? What they're admitting is that, again, it's not about an actual legislative fix. It's not about securing the border. It's not about creating policies that are going to actually be helpful for illegal immigrants. It's about making Trump look like the bad guy. Because that is how the Democrats think they can score political points. And I'm sorry if it seems like I'm repeating myself, but it's so crucial that not only anyone who watches this video understands that, but just people in general, people that may bring it up. I mean, to fold to this narrative that's being put forward by the Democrats and the media, it would be disastrous. It just can't be done. It's not good for our country. It's not good for the people who are trying to come into this country illegally. The only people that it may be good for are the politicians who don't give a damn about the illegal immigrants. And Chuck Schumer goes on to say, again, the president can change this with his pen, not follow the law, warning that Republicans would likely try to add poison pill provisions to any immigration bill that came to the floor, saying, quote, unacceptable additions have bogged down every piece of legislation we've done, he said. And by unacceptable additions, he means things like properly securing the border, properly funding ICE, and properly funding the Border Patrol. He means things like ending chain migration, like ending the visa lottery program. These are all things that Chuck Schumer doesn't want to do. These are all things that are unacceptable additions for him. These are the common sense steps that need to be taken if you objectively look at the facts surrounding the crisis at our southern border. These are the steps that need to be taken, the loopholes that allow this influx of illegal immigration need to be shut down. The incentives, the perverse incentives that incentivize children, many of them unaccompanied, taken by human smugglers, thousands of miles in some cases, to become illegally into the United States. That incentive needs to stop. These are all things Chuck Schumer doesn't give a damn about. All he wants to do is make Donald Trump look like an evil Nazi. So with this executive order, the interesting thing about this is that the executive order is directly challenging basically the 1997 Flores Decree, which said that unaccompanied minors cannot be held for more than 20 days. But it's I think more specifically challenging the 2015 Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals amendment to the Flores Decree that said that as well as unaccompanied minors, accompanied minors, family units, also cannot be held together for more than 20 days. Again, it can't be stressed enough. That was a liberal, the most liberal circuit court, the Ninth Circuit, Court of Appeals. That gets overturned, two-thirds of the time by the Supreme Court every time its cases go there, because it clearly is very liberal in its interpretations of the law. Now, this executive order is going to be challenged in the court, and the most ironic thing about this is that you are now going to have liberal organizations. You're going to have liberal judges. You're going to have Democrats, organizations like the ACLU, that are going to sue the Trump administration to do what? To basically try to separate families at the border. That's what they're going to do, because this executive order is undoubtedly going to be challenged in court. So you're going to have the courts challenging the executive order that is actually doing what they wanted them to do. I mean, it's insane. It's truly insane. But what may wind up happening because of this is this may politically actually work fairly well for the Trump administration, because this executive order is so flimsy that it's going to obviously be challenged in court, and it may very well get shot down pretty quickly. So that leaves a pretty small window of time for Congress to actually act. And at this point, it seems that the Democrats are not willing to actually act. This is the president doing what Congress could have done. Congress, mainly because of the Democrats, is refusing to make his executive order actual law, because they don't want people detained as family units at all, which I will remind you, President Obama was holding entire families at these shelters for months at a time, and none of these reporters who are now saying that even Trump holding families and not continuing the policy of catch and release is just horrible. It's reprehensible. It's just evil. None of these people said a word when that exact same thing was happening under the Obama administration. It highlights the pure, unrivaled level of hypocrisy that oozes from these people. So what you see here is an atmosphere of hatred, an atmosphere of division, an atmosphere of polarization, an atmosphere that, again, I'm not solely putting blame on one side or the other. Both sides engage in the type of hyperbolic rhetoric that is absolutely not helpful whatsoever. This country, again, is in an ideological civil war, and rhetoric like this is helping to intensify that ideological civil war and potentially moving it closer to a real civil war. So I want to finish with a reminder of Steve Scalise and the baseball shooting, and how that was entirely politically motivated by a madman who, driven by the things that he heard from MSNBC, the things that he was hearing from people like Bernie Sanders, caused him to go and try to murder a whole team of members of Congress as they were at a baseball field for a baseball practice. That is what this can lead to. That is what this type of rhetoric will lead to. And I really hope that people can start to be more responsible with the things that they say. I really hope we can come together and start to actually be able to have discussions about policy. And if we can't do that, if we can never agree on policy, that's fine. But when we're at this level where people hate each other, it's getting to the point where society at some point will begin to unravel. And it's scary, it's dangerous. We live in very dangerous times right now. I really hope we can start. I really hope we can start cooling all of this insanity down. I really hope that we can, for the good of not only our country, but the unaccompanied children that are the real victims in this whole situation, and really for the world as a whole, because America still is in many ways the leader of the world, and regardless of what people want to say, and if you have a total breakdown of our society, that probably means that there's going to be a global societal breakdown not long after that. So, again, here we are. We're in some really crazy times now. People just need to, maybe take a chill pill, just relax a little bit, and maybe stop calling each other Nazis so much. Maybe stop calling people Nazis. Maybe let's abide by Goodwin's Law. Let's just say that if you call someone a Nazi, you are completely discredited. So, with that, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope this was informative to you, and I hope it can help positive, constructive political discourse to be able to take place in this country. And again, if we can never agree on the politics, hopefully we can still retain a level of common decency for each other as human beings. At least, I hope we can at least achieve that. So with that, I hope you enjoyed this video. And if you'd like to, subscribe or comment or leave a like, that would all be much appreciated. Share this video with your friends, if you dare be called a horrible, evil racist. And if you would like to follow me on Twitter, I will have the link for that, as well as the link for the audio version of this that I will have posted on SoundCloud. So, have a wonderful day, and may the Force be with you.